There was once an interview hidden for 83 years, because if released, it could change the way humanity understands death, God, and itself. In 1930, at the age of 74, Nikola Tesla, the misunderstood genius of the modern world, sat down and spoke of things that both science and religion had long avoided. Light, the soul, black holes, the universe, and life after death, not from belief, not from hypothesis, but from what he had seen, measured, and recorded, in the silence of a man who had stepped beyond the threshold of life. You are not born, you do not die, you are light, compressed into form. And soon, you will remember. If ever there was a conversation that made even time fall silent, this was it. 1930. In a small room, so quiet one could hear the sound of light falling onto an old wooden desk. A young journalist sat across from a man the world had heard of, but almost no one truly understood, Nikola Tesla. He wore no glasses, carried no diagrams, no formulas, only a gaze that seemed to stretch beyond lifetimes. There was no microphone on the table, no recorder, only a pen and a notebook waiting to be filled, not with information, but with truths humanity was not yet ready to face. Nearly a century after it was buried, the transcript of this interview, once labeled dangerous to public consciousness, was rediscovered. And what Tesla shared in that conversation didn't just shake the foundations of science. It shook the soul of anyone who has ever asked, what happens to us after death? No one who has ever lived truly disappears. That was the first thing Tesla said. Not a statement, but a knowing. His voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the room, as if he wasn't just speaking to the man in front of him, but to every soul that had ever passed through this world. When the journalist asked him about life, death, God, matter, and the cosmos, Tesla did not answer like a scientist. He did not cite, he did not prove, he did not try to persuade. He simply spoke, as if he had already been through death and come back. I am not a believer. I am a knower, he said, and from that moment, the interview no longer followed the structure of an ordinary dialogue, but unfolded like an encounter between humanity and its deepest self. Tesla didn't just speak of experiments. He spoke of beams of light vanishing from the world, of pain too deep to name yet still able to make us weep, and of the idea that we were never truly born, and will never truly die. And it was in that silence, not with any scientific device, that Tesla laid the foundation for a new universe. A universe where light is origin, soul is living energy, and death is merely a transition. This was not an interview, the journalist later scribbled in the margins. It was a message from another dimension, where he still lives, not in form, but in the light of understanding we have yet to reach. If you are ready to step into the space where science and soul converge, then this conversation is not merely something to be heard. It is something your soul has always been waiting to remember. I didn't want to light a room. I wanted to light the entire planet. When the journalist asked what Tesla felt remained unfinished in his life, he sat in silence for quite a while. Then, as if speaking to a version of himself from a future lost in time, he answered in a low but resolute voice, I could have created a second sun. In his laboratory in Colorado, he once attempted something no one dared to imagine. To charge the Earth like a giant battery. He didn't need wires. He didn't need power stations. He only needed to understand how the planet vibrated, and with that, he could transmit energy across the globe, not just to power a light bulb, but to illuminate all of humanity with pure, free, and limitless energy. But the world wasn't ready. I could have given humanity a new lifeblood, but humanity was not ready to receive it. Tesla did not say this in anger, but with the quiet sorrow of a father unable to give his greatest gift to a child not yet wise enough to hold it. He once tried to convince investors that he could transmit electricity wirelessly, that he could move objects through space, that the earth, the water, and the air were saturated with living energy. They listened, but they didn't understand. They signed contracts, but they didn't believe. And eventually, they turned their backs when they realized what he had created could not be controlled, could not be packaged, and could not be sold by the kilowatt. Every inventor faces doubt, but I didn't just face doubt. I faced fear. Tesla was not opposed because he failed. He was buried because he succeeded too far. Because he didn't want to create a product. He wanted to unlock potential. He didn't want to manufacture electricity. He wanted to give light. And not just physical light, but the light of knowledge, awakening, and consciousness. And in his retelling, Tesla wasn't just speaking of electricity. He spoke of the positive energy in Bach's music, in the scent of flowers, in the rays of sunlight. Everything beautiful carries a healing frequency. Every piece of music, every beam of light, every loving emotion, it's all energy, measurable, usable, transmissible. All his life, he searched for ways to measure what science wasn't yet delicate enough to define. Joy, love, serenity, inner light. But the world had no space for that kind of science. Not back then, and perhaps still not now. Tesla wasn't bitter, but in his eyes, as he said these things, there was a silence that ached. I lived ahead of my time, and the price was loneliness. Near the end of the conversation, the journalist quietly asked, "Do you regret chasing something the world never believed in?" Tesla simply smiled, so faintly. "No. Because I didn't create to be believed. I created to plant seeds. And one day, the light will bloom on its own." We keep searching for energy in machines, forgetting even the tiniest flower is glowing. After his astonishing revelations about the ambition to light the entire planet, Nikola Tesla suddenly shifted the conversation. His voice softened, no longer the tone of an engineer, but more like music rising from deep within. "Have you ever heard Mozart?" he asked. "I didn't hear it with my ears. I measured it. That music carries positive energy. It can heal. It can restructure the mind." The journalist was briefly confused. But Tesla didn't stop there. "Flowers too," he said. "They radiate a pure frequency, as if nature is speaking directly to your soul. Sunlight, it doesn't just nourish plants, it nourishes the spirit. Every scent, every bird's song, every color, they're all energy signals we've forgotten how to hear. We are surrounded by energy, yet we choose to live in noise." Tesla did not reject physics, but he insisted. True energy comes not only from electricity, but from emotion, from joy, from peace, from unconditional love. He believed emotions weren't abstract or subjective, as modern science tends to classify them. On the contrary, emotion is vibration. It is wave. It is an energy field powerful enough to change the body, to heal illness, even to rewrite DNA itself. "We live in a universe of music," he said, "not music with notes and rhythm, but music made of harmony. Every time you love genuinely, you are playing a song the universe can hear." Tesla recounted nights where he sat for hours, simply listening to the silence of all things. A falling leaf, a breeze brushing the window, a beam of light crossing the room. Each phenomenon carried its own energetic code. Modern science can measure light, but it still cannot measure beauty. And I believe, beauty is the purest form of energy. To Tesla, everything is alive, not just because it breathes, but because everything vibrates. And vibration is life. That's why sorrow has a frequency, and joy has its own wave. They don't just live in the mind, they influence physical reality. A true scientist, he said, is not just someone who can measure gravity or orbits, but someone who can feel what happens when a heart breaks. Toward the end, Tesla looked up out the window. The sun had just risen. "They called me mad," he smiled, "because I believed there was energy in a gentle gaze, in a compassionate smile, in the sound of melancholic music at dusk." Then he turned to the journalist and said slowly, "I didn't build machines. I decoded the energy that already exists. In the simplest things we've forgotten to notice. I once saw a star consume itself, disappearing without leaving light behind. But I didn't call it the end. I called it a doorway." People often think of Tesla as working only with coils, electric arcs, and the famed Wardenclyffe Tower. But few know, he once witnessed something that humanity would only begin to understand decades later: a black hole. He recalled it with an eerie calm. "During an experiment in Colorado, I observed light being distorted. It didn't reflect. It didn't scatter. It was pulled into an invisible point in space, as if it had been ripped out of the universe." According to Tesla, a star can draw in its own light, compressing it into such a small space that, An apple could contain all of its mass. I calculated, and realized, if true, it would weigh more than our entire solar system combined. In 1930, what he described had no name. But today, we call it a black hole. A place from which nothing escapes, not even light. A phenomenon where even time distorts as it approaches. But to Tesla, a black hole wasn't an end. It wasn't collapse. It was a threshold, a gate. It's a state where light is not destroyed, but restructured. A moment when energy returns to its original form. Undivided, undefined, untouched by time. He believed such points exist, not only out there in distant galaxies, but within each of us. We each carry our own black holes. They are nameless regions of memory. They are pains buried so deep that even light cannot reach them. But that is not death. That is a chance to be reborn. Tesla didn't see the universe like a conventional physicist. He saw it as a living being, breathing, remembering, transforming. To him, the black hole was the most beautiful metaphor for transmutation. The moment when all definitions of matter, light, and space dissolve, and we return to our purest form. Unshaped energy. We often ask, what happens after death? But I think the better question is, when the light pulls back, where does it go? In that moment, Tesla fell silent. He gazed off, as if listening to the answer from the far side of the cosmos. I don't need science to confirm what I've seen. Because I'm not speculating. I stood before it, and I understood. What the world calls the end is really the beginning of a form of existence we are not yet pure enough to perceive. God is light, no form, no praise required, no punishment, no condemnation, only presence. Nikola Tesla sat upright, eyes gazing into the invisible distance when asked, "Do you believe in God?" He didn't answer immediately. Then gently, not as a confession, but as a truth long known, he said, "I don't believe, I know." Tesla never denied religion. He called religions necessary attempts by humanity to describe the infinite using finite words. But he also made it clear, no religion holds the absolute truth. They are simply different reflections of the same longing. To return to the source. To find meaning. To rediscover the original light. To him, God had no shape, no name, not a person, not a being in the clouds, not something requiring ritual. People project their own image onto God to make worship easier. But the true God surpasses imagination, transcends language, and eludes measurement. According to Tesla, God is primal energy, the first light, undivided, the origin of every frequency, every vibration, every form of life. God is vibration, the foundational state of all existence, an invisible pulse, but present everywhere. In a beam of light, in a breath, in the sound of a heart breaking open from love. He said the light we see is only the surface. The primordial light cannot be seen, cannot be held, but can be felt. Like a deep emotion you cannot name. Yet you know it lives within you. I once looked at the structure of light under electric magnification. I didn't see particles. I saw memory, a form of knowing, a source that needs no worship, yet makes you weep when you touch it. Tesla believed God does not care for ritual. No need for kneeling. No scriptures, no churches, only a sincere heart, a kind action, a choice not to harm. To do no harm is the deepest form of prayer. He wasn't afraid to say these things. But he admitted, if I were to say publicly what I know, my career would be over. Because the era I live in is not generous enough to accept a God that does not require fear to exist. Then, as if closing a chapter that cannot be concluded, he whispered, as though speaking to the universe itself, God is the breath of light inside all things. It doesn't need to be proven. It doesn't need to be believed. It only needs to be remembered. We do not die. We simply return to our original form of light. When the journalist asked about death, not out of curiosity, but from the quiet fear that lives in every heart, Tesla didn't respond immediately. He closed his eyes for a few seconds, as if listening to an ancient memory stirring. Then, he opened his eyes, his voice low and firm. Death is a wrong word. No one who has ever lived truly dies. No one. He didn't say it as a metaphor. He spoke it as a physical truth. A law greater than any law. Everything you see, the body, the trees, the planets, the stars, is just light, compressed at a specific vibration. When that vibration changes, the form disappears, but the light remains. Tesla believed humans are not their bodies. We are vibrations, frequencies, a conscious form of energy. And energy, as he had proven, can never be destroyed. It only changes form. You were not born. You do not die. You are simply residing temporarily in this form. Like light resting inside a drop of water. The body is only a temporary vessel. The soul is condensed light, waiting to be released. When the body dissolves, the energy returns to the original field. A place with no name, no gender, no age, only pure light. Tesla looked directly at the journalist. His eyes unwavering. I'm not guessing. I know. Because to him, all ideas of death, pain, loss, separation, were merely misunderstandings of a civilization that has forgotten its essence. Death is like a wave returning to the ocean. You do not disappear. You merge back into what you were always a part of. Then Tesla said something that made the interviewer, and anyone listening, fall completely silent. If you could see under the highest magnification, you'd see this. What you call the last breath is actually light, withdrawing to the center, not an ending, just a cycle, he admitted. Such things are hard for science to accept. But he also knew, truth does not require belief to exist. One day, Tesla said, science will prove that the soul is vibration, light with memory, and when that day comes, humanity will stop fearing death. They will simply learn to remember how they once radiated. When a child dies somewhere far away, a place you've never even set foot in, you can still feel that strange sorrow. That's not coincidence. That's connection. Tesla called it cosmic pain. Not personal pain. Not pain caused by direct trauma. But a deep, underlying vibration, one that all of us, unknowingly, share. Humans think of themselves as isolated beings. But in truth, we are notes in the same symphony. When one note falls out of tune, the whole piece trembles. Tesla said that at times, he would feel a sudden darkness clouding his mind, only to find that, at that very moment, a beautiful soul somewhere in the world had just passed away. I felt pain, without knowing why. Then I understood. My soul had been gently tugged by an invisible thread snapping somewhere else. He believed that all souls are connected through vibrating energy threads. When one suffers, all feel it. When one forgives, all feel lighter. A single act of kindness can lessen suffering in a place you'll never know by name. That's how the universe self-balances, through collective sensing. And cosmic pain, though silent, is a signal that something has fallen out of harmony. According to Tesla, forgetting this connection is the root of war, poverty, disease, and hatred. Because the moment we think we are separate, we begin to justify hurting others without feeling it. But when we remember again that we belong to each other, violence loses its reason to exist. Tesla believed the healing of the world would not come through technology, but through the awareness that we can feel one another's pain. And the strange beauty of it all is, once you recognize this, the wound softens, not vanishes, but feels less alone. Pain is inevitable, but if we feel it together, it is no longer punishment. It becomes a message from the universe. Near the end of this part of the conversation, the journalist, who had been mostly silent, asked in a hushed tone, "Do you truly believe that our souls can touch those of others, even ones we've never met?" Tesla nodded. He didn't speak. He simply reached out and gently tapped the surface of the wooden table. "Like music," he said, "you cannot see it, but it touches you and makes you cry. Souls are the same. You cannot pull a single thread in the universe without trembling the entire fabric." Sitting upright in an old wooden chair, Tesla did more than answer questions. He painted an invisible map with words. Every thought you have, every word you speak, every action you take, leaves a ripple in the structure of the universe. And those ripples never vanish. To Tesla, the world was not a sequence of random events. It was a unified structure, like a silk tapestry stretching into infinity. Each of your behaviors, a word, a glance, a tiny decision, sends vibrations echoing across space and time. Do good, even if no one sees, and it lives. Do harm, even if no one watches, and it leaves a mark. Tesla called this the moral mechanics of the cosmos. Not religion, not commandments, but a natural law, where good generates good, and cruelty gives rise to suffering. Not because God rewards or punishes, but because every vibration returns. He gave an example. A kind word you speak today may save someone from ending their life. An outburst of anger at someone may plant a seed of hatred that lasts a lifetime. And you think that disappears? No. It comes back, not to punish, but to complete itself. Tesla believed humanity is trapped in suffering because it has forgotten this law. They think small actions are insignificant. They think words, looks, attitudes are invisible, but they are the threads weaving the fate of the entire world. We are living inside a piece of music we helped compose. If you don't like the melody that's playing, change the notes you contribute each day. Tesla didn't speak this as a preacher. He spoke as a physicist, with logic, with principles, and with a calm that felt almost otherworldly. Everything you do, whether reaching out to hold the hand of someone in despair, or turning away, reshapes the structure of reality. At the end of the conversation, the journalist asked, "If everything echoes, can we ever escape the consequences?" Tesla replied, without hesitation, "No, but you can transform the consequence through a new action, through awareness, by sending out stronger, better vibrations. You don't have to change the entire world. Just change the corner of the tapestry you touch every day, and the universe will adjust the rest." Humanity is not ready, but it is awakening, and that is enough. The interview was nearing its end. The young journalist looked into Tesla's eyes that held both the depth of a genius and the loneliness of someone who lived ahead of his time. He had spoken of light, of the soul, of God, of the universe, like layered dimensions of consciousness. All leading to one question: "Sir, do you still have hope for humanity?" Tesla didn't answer immediately. He looked out the window, where the soft evening light touched the rooftops of a fading city. Then he spoke, gently, "I always have hope, though hope often walks hand in hand with sorrow." He acknowledged that the 20th century would be a time of discovery, of technology, of unprecedented progress. But alongside it, there would be alienation, war, and a civilization slowly forgetting its own heart. Humanity has mastered the art of killing, with greater and greater efficiency. But they still haven't learned how to hold each other properly. Tesla held no bitterness. He did not condemn. He said only one thing: progress is not development, unless it is accompanied by awareness. Science may decode the atom, but only compassion can decode pain. You may reach Mars, but if you carry hatred with you, it will only be another hell further away. So in his final prophecy, Tesla didn't speak of inventions, or energy, or machines. He spoke of people. "I believe the age of light will come. Not light from wires, but light from within. From those who carry a pure vibration. They don't need fame. They don't need power. They only need to live with kindness." Tesla called them the people of light. They might be an elderly woman reaching out to hold an abandoned child, a young man stepping into the street to stop a fight, a mother praying silently for the whole world. They are those who choose to love, even when the world doesn't love them back. And he believed that these people, not governments, not science, would save the world, not with force, but with the gentle tremor of a heart no longer afraid. Humanity will make mistakes. It will destroy itself, more than once. But eventually, it will remember that we are not dirt, but light. Not war, but the universe's memory in human form. And then, as if the conversation had ended long ago, Tesla smiled, not at the interviewer, but at something waiting for him on the other side of time. "I've seen the future. It is not perfect, but it is moving toward the light." 83 years later, that interview was found. In a world drowning in noise, fear, and conflict, a voice emerged, soft as a breath, but enough to stir the souls who had forgotten they were once made of light. We have always been energy, and light never truly fades. You didn't just hear Tesla with your ears. You heard him with your heart. And if something inside you trembled softly, perhaps it's because you always remembered. You were just waiting to be awakened. We've traveled through light, through death, through energy, through pain and cosmic memory. Not just to understand Tesla, but to remember ourselves. And if you believe, as he once did, that light never truly disappears, that we are connected by invisible threads, and that the people of light will become the future of humankind, then subscribe, so you won't miss journeys like this. Whispers from the past, maps for the future, and streams of light waiting for you to remember. Because the world is loud, but your soul is very quiet and listening.